How's it going, guys? What of course you'll be seeing today is a breakdown of the Battlefield Hardline beta. I almost said Battlefield 4, which I'll be talking about shortly. Well, I'll give you my thoughts, I'll give you my overall opinions on it, and I have been one of its harshest critics to this point. And that being said, I feel before I was actually going to give my full opinion on it, I'd give it maybe 10 matches worth of play, get a good balance for the two game types, which I'll explain shortly, before I can give an opinion. Because to give an opinion before trying a game is pure stupidity, nothing short of it. It's sort of the try it before you knock it type. So of course I did give it a good trial run, and I'm going to give you my thoughts, and I'll give you breakdowns of basically what it is, of course, in case you're new to the beta or you couldn't get access to it or whatnot. So here we go, let's get started. First things first, there's only one level in the beta, and that's called High Tension, and it reminds me a lot of the Siege of Shanghai map from Battlefield 4, because there's a lot of that high elements, or high ground elements versus low ground elements, infantry fights on the ground and vehicle fights on the ground versus, say, counter snipers sitting on the top, which of course brings two elements which can go either way. It's you can put a spawn beacon on the top, parachute down, open yourself up a whole nother world of possibilities to traverse across the map, but at the same time it can be a detriment too, because a lot of people say, oh well, then it's just, you know, roof campers or sniper campers, and it's understandable. There's pros and cons to nearly every element, and at least in this one map I've noticed for the most part there isn't a lot of rooftop campers in my experiences. Maybe my experiences differ from the majority, but that being said, I haven't found a lot. And this map here though is smaller than Siege of Shanghai, and that's for the good, I'd say. I'd say it's a medium-sized map. It's not really small, but it's not really large either, so you get that variety of different types of engagements and gunfights. And the next gunfight or vehicle style fight isn't too far away, which is a plus. And of course, when the full game comes out, we'll have to see how many maps we get and how they differ in size, if they differ in terms of sightlines, engagements. But the fact that there's a recon kit in this game means there's probably going to be at least some larger size map than this one, so we'll see. And speaking of recon, there's 4 kits in the game. The first one being Operator, which the description of it says it functions as the medic of police and criminal forces, and it's basically a carbon copy of the medic in Battlefield 4. It features assault rifles, and it features medical supplies to heal and revive. And the assault rifles that are in the beta, at least, are the M16A3, the AKM, and the G36C, although the Ace-23 has apparently been confirmed for the endgame when that comes out, but it's not available in the beta. With regard to the mechanic, it's the engineer of Battlefield 4. It functions as the anti-vehicle and repairman of the police and criminal forces. It's equipped with submachine guns, an RPG, and a repair torch. And an Uzi, a UMP-45, and the P90 are the submachine guns available in the beta. Next up is the Enforcer, which, as you're following the trend, is support. It functions as the support of police and criminal forces. You get a light machine guns, as well as shotguns, as well as ammunition boxes, and they call it explosive charges, but it's C4. And you start with the MG36, the M240B, the 870 Marine Magnum shotgun, and the sawed-off shotgun, which you should see at least some highlights of in this video toward the end. And of course, the last kit is called the Professional, which functions as the recon of police and criminal forces, specializing in long-range targets as well as surveillance. And you start with the R700, which is basically the bolt-action sniper rifle in the game. And I believe the Saiga 308 and the PTR 91 are the other two sniper rifles, but they're basically semi-automatics available in the beta. Although the L96A1 has been confirmed, I guess, to be in the end game later on, but it's definitely not in the beta now. So again, we'll talk about the modes next. There's only 2 so far in the beta, and the first one's Heist. Which is basically an objective game mode where robbers try to blow open a vault and escape with the cash. Meanwhile, the cops try to prevent the robbery and the criminals escape. So it has rush elements in it, and that's what makes it interesting, because rush is one of my favorite game modes of any Battlefield, especially going back to Bad Company 2. And of course, when it says the next part is Blood Money, that's an objective game mode that pits cops and robbers against each other in a fight to seize a large sum of money from the opposing team. So basically, and you'll see plenty of it in the back footage, basically you each have 2 different spots where you have to go and capture the money, and you have to try and capture the money and bring it back to your base. So it's an interesting element, and at least even in these smaller 32 servers, you'd think it'd be clustered or you think it'd be too spread. But a lot of the time, I found it to be quite good. A lot of people sort of vary up their time between playing defense and going attacking. So it's pretty interesting in regards to that element. There's more to be named, but this is all that's in the beta, of course. And I imagine Conquest and maybe just full-on Rush might actually be made later on. We'll see. And of course, what I'll do is break down what I see here in terms of the gadgets. In terms of the gadgets, it looks like all kits are going to have access to a gas mask, a grappling hook, a zip line, the T62 CEW, which is a taser. So it's a non-lethal takedown. You can take a guy down, I imagine, in one of the to-be-named modes in the future, where it's basically, it's sort of a, I guess, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's basically along the lines of capture but not kill the bad guys. I don't know how it would work with the robbers capturing the cops, but unless it's a hostage situation. But with you can tase people. I have been tased in this game a couple of times, but I guess that's a different element. It'll probably make a lot more sense when the next game mode comes out. In terms of melee weapons, there's the knife, the baseball bat, the police battalion. In terms of grenades, there's M67, there's gas grenades, there's smoke grenades, flashbangs. In terms of mechanics, there's the RPG-7, there's a Stinger, there's a SMA, there's a repair tool. The Enforcer gets the ammo box, the ballistic shield, and the breaching charge. And the Professional gets a laser, trip mine, a camera, and a decoy. I'm not sure exactly how the decoy works. I didn't get a chance to try it out before the beta basically was coming close to an end, and I wasn't even home to get a chance to play it. There are vehicles in it as well. The armored SWAT vehicles, there's an armored rescue vehicle, an armored attack truck, and a mobile command post, which is basically similar to an LAV in style, at least from what I've seen. And there's all sorts of vehicles that aren't armored in the game. Like there's police motorcycles, there's a street bike, there's a sedan, a van, a muscle car, a fuel tanker, a syndicate crew, a bank truck. There's all sorts. And of course there's at least two types of choppers that were in the beta, and that was a transport chopper and an executive chopper. And the executive chopper is basically the little bird, and that's with regard to vehicles and how they play out. Apparently there will be Levolution in the game as well. If you were a big fan of that in Battlefield 4, apparently it will be making a nice return. And that's with regard to any of that. The sidearms mentioned in the game, at least in the beta, I'm not sure if this is going to apply to the actual full game when it comes out, but it seems as if sidearms were limited to kits. Like the Tech 9, you'll see me shoot a guy with it. The Tech 9 is really interesting because I had a lot of fun with it. It's a good sidearm. There's the 93R, the M1911, the Heckler & Koch 45C, and the 92FS. But again, they are exclusive to the kits in the beta, and I'm not sure if that's going to apply to the base game. But that's an interesting element. We'll see how it does apply. Overall, though, with regard to this game, I must say, as I've said multiple times, I have been a big critic of this game. I felt it was basically a Battlefield 4 mod running on the same engine that they threw together to hopefully draw more money out of the consumer, and to make up for, I guess, the fact that Battlefield 4 was a failure, and to try and draw more people toward the Battlefield series. That's partly still how I feel about this game. My opinion hasn't changed. I'm definitely not going to buy it at release, I think, for the most part. And if I do, it'll be because my subscribers change my mind down the road. But at the same time, or I find good information about it. But at the same time, I still feel, and again, I haven't gotten all the full information on how the game will be released and that, but I don't feel it should be a $60 release. If this game sold for $30, I probably would buy it on release, or maybe even slightly after release, just based on the price point. But at $60, and the fact that coming off a buggy game, I'm not sure I'd really have the incentive to do so. Not to mention, I don't really pre-order games, especially not pre-ordering anymore after the Battlefield 4 fiasco, but again, we'll see if I actually do make this game. But I will say this, playing the beta for a bit, it was actually a pretty decent amount of fun. I was expecting to trash this game thoroughly, but it ended up being pretty decent for the most part. It had that element of close quarter engagements, lots of different firefights. It always kept you engaged. You weren't really looking around for hours to try and find an engagement. They weren't too big, they weren't too clustered. Of course, it's one map. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see as more information comes into play and how that will vary in people consuming and buying and playing, etc. But I did find it was a lot of fun in the short term, but I'm not sure it's good enough to say supplant Battlefield 4 for me, especially as the new DLCs will be coming out. So I'm going to wait to buy it probably on release unless its price point is lowered to 30 bucks or something like that, and we'll wait to see more elements. But it was more fun than I expected. See you guys later.